Okay, good day everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, based on your time zone where you're watching. It's a Precision Agriculture Incubation Program. I'm glad we are making progress. So, in the continuation of our program, we have another insightful section today on the topic precision crop protection with drones. And we have one of reputable professional in the African drone industry. Uh, she's going to be the one like making justice to the topic, and I am sure we're going to enjoy that. So before we go deeply into the program, or for her before taking her section, we quickly want to do the uh, presentation, just like we usually do. So, quick pull that up. All right. Okay. So once again, you're welcome to Precision Field Academy. So Precision Field Academy is the organizer of the Precision Agriculture Incubation Program, PAIP. So let me quickly give a brief rundown of the program for those joining us for the very first time, so they can actually have an insight around what we do basically. So at Precision Field Academy, our vision is to create a world where every young person, regardless of their background, has the opportunity to become a digitally savvy farmer or agricultural professional, driving sustainable and equitable growth in their communities through the transformative power of technology. And our mission is to raise next gen farmers that are tech inclined and digitally savvy. So at Precision Field Academy is a social enterprise where we train and build the capacity of young professionals in modern and emerging technologies for the future of work and to live with precision agriculture. And we believe in core three methodologies, which is education and knowledge sharing, training and skill development, coaching and mentorship. Besides these three methodologies, we have six tech skills in focus. Number one, which is drone technology. We are leveraging the power of drone technology to empower farmer and to actually change the game of agriculture in totality, as well come in terms of data collection, pest management, crop protection, basically revolving around drone technology. And also number two, we have GIS and remote sensing. This are the geographical information system where we collect data from Earth observation data as well, involving the use of satellites, that's space for data collection, and also using drones in remote sensing. Thirdly, we have data science for agriculture. This is all around the general data around agriculture and the agricultural space, be it could be yield mapping, it could be pest infestation data, various data basically, collection of plant classification, crop evaluation, and all of that revolve around use of data science in agriculture for informed decision. Number four, we have robotics and Internet of Things. This deals with the use of expert systems, smart systems that can actually take action and actually work instead of you. So I'm going to be using this as example where you have a large expanse of land, maybe a rice field or a maize field, and you have smart irrigation systems working with soil moisture sensors can actually trigger itself based on programmed instructions. Even when you are not on the farm, it's going to trigger the irrigation system, uh, dispense and wet the farm and put itself off based on programming. So this revolves around the use of Internet of Things, robotics, and embedded systems. Also, number five, we have artificial intelligence and machine learning. We are in the era whereby AI is doing a lot of things, ranging from ChatGTP and all other applications for photography, AI generation, and also in agriculture, artificial intelligence is very, very significant. It has so much to offer, which comes in terms of predictive analysis, whereby you have intelligent systems that can actually uh, based on the data generated or the data collected, can actually predict for you the outcome or what's going to be the eventuality of your crop production or your agricultural practices per time. Also, we have enterprise development. So the end goal of everything is that you actually need to show result. So if you are being trained and you are not showing any effort for it, that means it's a waste of time. So the end goal is for every of our participant or scholars who are actually passing through Precision Food Academy, um, experiencing and benefiting from our training, for them to actually create a sustainable enterprise that is focused at solving problem. And this can actually come in terms of maybe developing a startup that creates technology systems, mobile applications, their web applications, and all of these things to actually help to enhance precision agriculture and help us practice agriculture in a more precise and efficient way. So why do we do what we do, or what's our motivation? We discover there is a skill gap that needs to be closed, and the young professionals need to build skills on both the technical part and enterprise skills, understanding how to run your organization on both the entrepreneurial skill, building strategies, and also the technical part on the product development, both the front end and the back end. So young people need to build skills for the future of work in agriculture. Secondly, we discover that observing the trend is not enough. Like you shouldn't just be amazed with maybe technology coming up. So youth in Africa need to become an enabler and a player of the fourth uh, industrial agricultural revolution and not just mere observer. Like they really need to be included in driving initiatives that enhance agriculture. And thirdly, for African agriculture to thrive, technology is actually the key to unlock African agricultural potential. So, lastly, why should you join us at Precision Field Academy? We at Precision Field Academy, we are creating the future we want in agriculture. We are changing the paradigm of agriculture with digital technology and based on a perception of what we think agriculture should look like in the 21st century. Also, we connect you to the world of information and opportunities, which comes in terms of scholarship, internship, volunteership, on both local and international scale for your career growth. Also, we believe in skill development, enhancement of skills, in terms of project collaboration, research work, community interaction workshops, and symposiums. And lastly, give you access to coaching and mentorship from industry leaders and reputable career professionals. So at Precision Field Academy, we are building a community of young tech inclined and digitally savvy farmers and professionals. Thank you. Okay, so as we progress forward, I am going to be reading the profile of our speaker before she comes up. She has been doing very well. She's a professional. I follow her on LinkedIn, and I'm amazed at what she do. She's doing very fine. So, okay, so the topic for today is precision crop spraying with drone. So the let's quickly have a citation of our speaker. I read. Our speaker is her name is Violet Ochieng. So Violet is a STEM advocate and agricultural remote pilot. She was a winner of the Carol Ellison Science Award of the year 2021. She holds a position of Drone Technology Researcher Officer at CABI. Our career objective is to utilize our research capacity to address societal challenges while creating opportunities for innovation. She bagged a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Conservation and Natural Resources Management. Followed by a master's program, she developed and designed she developed, designed and implemented a project with the Center of Agriculture and Bioscience International (CABI) and Astral Aerial Solution, focusing on piloting and using drone technology for surveillance and control of locusts. Violet is dedicated to advancing scientific and technological innovations that contributes to poverty alleviation and enhance food security through agricultural research and innovation. She is intentionally dedicated to empowering youths to take the lead role in agriculture. All right. Thank you very much, Miss Violet Ochieng. Um, the floor is yours. You can come up now. Yes.
Joseph, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm so humbled also to present in this forum. And I also extend my appreciation to Femi for the invitation. I'm so humbled and I'm so happy to give my presentation so that we can learn together. So let me
Right.
share my
Welcome.
slide.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You can go ahead.
Let me share my slides.
Okay, okay. Okay, your slide is still uploading. Okay.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yes, yes. It's on. We can see.
Violet, this is actually from our hand. So if you'd like to share your screen, just using present on the screen there, the middle.
Femi, are you the
So
one?
something.
Have you shared? Is this my screen or your
Yeah, yeah.
screen?
Don't
Your
worry,
screen.
yeah, it's a screen from there. So I think we can progress.
Okay.
I think we can progress if that's fine. So Joseph
Okay,
will
thank you.
remove the screen.
Okay, okay. You can
It's
go ahead.
okay. It's okay.
All right, it's fine.
It's okay. Thank you so much. So, thank you so much for everyone who have managed to join this meeting or even a presentation. My name is Violet Ochieng, as Joseph has introduced, and I'm a research officer at CABI. I'm an environmentalist and agricultural entomologist by training, and I'm also a drone pilot. And I'm passionate in any research that improves agriculture, especially by the use of any technology such as drones. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I work as a research officer at CABI, and CABI is a Center for Agriculture and Bioscience International, which is it's an international non-governmental non-profit organization that improves people's lives by providing information. And this entails we do research that can improve agriculture and environment. Then, of course, we share the knowledge with the plant health practitioners and everyone, including farmers, extension officers, and everyone in the field of agriculture, just with the aim of improving people's lives and also by alleviating poverty. So what we do as CABI is we do research and we work closely with farmers who are actually the main bearers of the problems when it comes to pests and diseases. So we work closely with them, we help them in pest identification, disease identification, Then we also advise them on how best they can control those problems. Next slide, please. So at CABI, we work with partners and so that we can come up with ways of solving some of the challenges such as hunger, poverty, climate change, loss of biodiversity, gender inequality, among others. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, so currently the main problem, of course, is that the world population is continuing to increase in number. And that means we need to come up with ways on how we can produce more food that will be enough for the population that is continuing to increase. At the same time, there is also a problem of climate change, especially in the field of agriculture, because you'll find that nowadays we have several pests and diseases that are emerging, and they were not there before. And these are impacting a lot on agriculture because farmers are experiencing yield loss. And some of these losses can be managed when the pests and diseases are identified at the early stage. And that's why we need to come up with technologies such as drones, and we need to apply them in the agriculture so that we can identify some of these challenges at an early stage. Then we advise farmers on how best they can apply the control measures at an early stage. This is because some of these pests, so for example, by the time a farmer is seeing maybe a damage on their crop, then it means that the pests have already started feeding on the crop, or even the disease has already destroyed the crop. So we need to come up with technologies that can identify some of these problems at an early stage, because most of these problems are because of how crops reflect green light. Some of these problems can be identified from air. So for example, when you use a drone, you can be able to map those areas. You can be able to detect even the change in reflectance of those crops, even the change in spectral signature of those crops. And this will help us to know whether a certain area is healthy or not, whether a certain crop is healthy or not. And through this, we prioritize specific areas that requires interventions. And we advise farmers or anyone who is in the field of agriculture at an early stage. And through this, we believe that agriculture can be improved, and pests and diseases will be managed at an early stage, and yield loss is something that we can also fight against. Thank you. Another slide, please. Yeah, so we have several potential of drones when it comes to precision agriculture. And one of the main potential is that they can be used to sense problems maybe in a crop field. So the first image is just showing how a drone can be used to map some of these fields. And through this mapping, we can be able to know the specific areas that are healthy and the areas that are not healthy. Because plants or even the crops, they emit green light. So that change in green light can help us to know the specific areas that requires intervention. So for example, in that picture, we can see that some of the areas are green, some of the areas are red, some are yellow. So with this, it helps us to prioritize the specific areas that are lacking, maybe if it's a nutrient, if it's a disease that is affecting the area, if it's a pest. So with this information, it even becomes easy to save a lot of time when it comes to spraying those particular areas. It can also save a lot of money because you won't need to apply pesticide in the whole field. You will just apply pesticide in the specific areas where you are sure the problem is. So it helps us to predict also the spatial and temporal distribution of pests and diseases because you can see how the pest or disease is spreading in time and also in space. So after getting that information, then it also becomes easy to come up with ways or even how control agents can be applied. And currently we have drones that can do that particular work. We have drones that can spray pesticides, and we also have drones that can spread insect. So in the field of agriculture, we have another method of controlling pests, which is we call it the use of pests to control population, with the use of beneficial insects to control the population of pests. So this happens by rearing these beneficial insects in the laboratory. They are called parasitoids. Then after rearing, after having a good number, then they are released into the field so that they can reduce the population of the pests. So we also have drones that can do that particular work. Instead of releasing those insects manually, or even using traditional methods which are tiresome and also time consuming, we have drones that you can just load the insects you want to release to the field. Then after that, after going to the field, you launch the drone, then you will automatically release the insect in the field in all the areas, even the hard to reach areas. Then drones can also help us in applying seed that is called seeding. For example, if you want to grow some of the maybe crops or even the trees in a certain forest, so drones make it easy even to distribute or even to spread those seeds. We have drones that can even do irrigation as long as you know the specific areas you want to apply that, you want to do the irrigation. So we have drones that can do that. And at the same time, in all of this, the end game is to detect pests at an early stage and also to apply pesticides or even those control agents in only the targeted places. And that's why we say drones has a potential to do that. Next slide, please. So you will see that in this slide, drone is presenting some of the key characteristics that are kind of different from the existing methods. So for example, in the first picture, you'll see that drone can operate in areas where other methods cannot reach. So for example, if you want to spray maybe some of the pests that infest hard to reach areas, maybe in a valley where people working with handheld sprayers cannot reach, or even the motorized sprayers. So with the drones, you can launch it and you can take it to any place that you want it to control, even hard to reach areas. The second picture, the lower one, is showing how drones can be used to apply pesticides, even in forested places that are thick, where people cannot walk through, where vehicles cannot reach. And the third one is showing how drones can be used to do that targeted application of pesticides. So for example, if a farmer's field is infested by certain pests and only specific crops or specific trees are infested, so there's no need of wasting pesticides and time to apply the whole field. Drone can be used to do the targeted application of the control agents, where it will just be sent to specific tree or a specific crop with that pest or the disease. And through this, it saves a lot of time, and the farmer will also end up using less quantity of pesticide, and also it prevents contamination of the non-target organisms or non-target areas. And of course, through this, it also helps us to conserve the environment. Next slide. So I will give an example of the two case studies that we have done, some of the studies that we have done in CABI to test the potential of drones in agriculture and how they can be used in even the precision agriculture. So the first project that we did was on desert locust. That was in 2020 to 2022 when the locust infestation occurred in Kenya. And the second project was on management of opuntia, which is another type of cactus that is also a big problem in Kenya. So these are the two studies that we have done so far, and we have collected some data, we did analysis, and we presented some of the reports and even published just to show how drones has a potential to improve agriculture and environmental conservation. Next slide, please. So in our first project, where we were assessing the efficiency of drones for surveillance and control of desert locust, this was really a game changer project because we are the first organization to pioneer such like a study. And it's because the locusts, they are the most destructive migratory pests. And they usually infest areas that are hard to reach, inaccessible, and these areas are usually arid and semi-arid areas. So you'll find that the existing methods that were being used during that time, of course, they were successfully used, but they presented some of the challenges. So there were some of the gaps that needed to be filled just to ensure that in future, when the locust infested maybe a certain country, people should be able to survey or even to control them at an early stage before they spread to bigger areas. And some of the results that we got from these studies were also communicating or even sharing with other people who have the mandate to control desert locust, so that we can see how they can be managed in the recession areas where they usually occur, like during the almost from January to December throughout the year. So during this period, CABI, together with the Astral Aerial Solution, which is a drone company also in Kenya, we partnered, and through that partnership and collaboration, we did a study because at this time, of course, we knew that drone has some of the advantages and potential. And we knew that it can be used to improve surveillance and control of desert locusts. But of course, there were some of the information that were missing because we didn't know the key parameters that we should consider, the standard operating procedures, and also because we were dealing with pesticides, we needed to be careful and come up with optimum parameters, even for the pesticide application, and just to ensure that drones will be able to spread or even to spray the specific volume application rate as required or even as recommended by the manufacturers of those pesticides. So that's why we tested efficiency of drones. And because we did this because drone was able to collect and even transmit data in real time. So these were just some of the things that we tested before doing the real experiment. We went to the field, we tried to use drones to see if they can do surveillance. Of course, we got positive results. We went to the field and just tried to test if it can do spraying. Of course, again, we got positive results. But again, for us to present something scientific, we decided to do several experiments just to establish all those information that were missing. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in the first experiment, because we wanted to know how some of the parameters are changing when you want to use a drone for surveillance. And of course, we did experiment with desert locust, but this information is not just for locust only. We can even use it as a baseline data to study other insects which are also priority pests, for example, in Kenya or even other countries, such like fall armyworm. So for surveillance, some of the parameters that we established were the flight time, number of photos that a drone can capture, number of waypoints, resolution, and flight length. So we tested 5 heights, and at each and every height, the drone we were launching a drone to capture the images of the locust that we spread on the ground. Then after capturing those images, we used Pix4D software to stitch the images together. Then we came up with something like a map. Then we analyzed that map through descriptive analysis, where we were just trying to see the difference between the images, the map that was created at 30 meters above the ground and a map that was created at 110 meters above the ground. And of course, we also did statistical analysis to compare all these parameters at different heights. And with the locust is really an interesting insect pest because you cannot just go to the field and start spraying without doing surveillance. You need to know where they have infested. You need to know the size of the area that they have infested. You need also to know the stage of the locust before communicating that information to the control team, who will decide on the type of the control measure that they bring on the ground to do the spraying. So with the locust, for the surveillance, we usually have 2 types of surveillance. The first one is where we normally use the satellite data just to give us the information on the likeliness of locusts to occur in a certain area. Just like I said, they occur in areas that are arid and semi-arid. And in these areas, getting green vegetation is not usually so easy. So when using the satellite data and we find out that maybe there's a green vegetation in a certain desert, then that usually shows that there is likeliness of locusts to occur in those areas. So after prioritizing a large area by having the information on maybe the presence of green vegetation, we usually do what is called the search surveillance, which is now you go to those specific areas where you are sure the locust can be found. Then after going to those areas, we do search surveillance just to confirm whether the locusts are there. Then if the locusts are there, then they are at what stage. Then you also need to confirm the size of the area that they have infested. Then after that stage is when you communicate that information to the control team. So with our data, we found out that at lower heights, when you want to get the detailed information of the locust, maybe the stage, the area, the size, and everything. Then you use the lower height. You can map the locust at 30 meters above the ground, because at this height, you'll be able to get a good resolution. And with that, you can get a detailed information of what you want to collect. Then when we want, for example, to do the first assessment surveillance, where we want to know the likeliness of locusts to occur in those areas, we can use the higher height at 110 meters, because at 110 you cannot see the locust clearly, but at least you'll be able to see whether green vegetation is present in a certain area or not. So these parameters were changing with the change in height, and you can see that at lower height, drone was able to capture more images. It was moving slow because it was trying to collect the detailed information of that area. But at higher height, drone is moving very fast, collecting less images, but the resolution is not that good, and that's why it can only be used to do general surveillance, where you want to prioritize the specific areas, such that after prioritizing those areas, then you do such surveillance just to confirm what you have found out when you are doing the assessment surveillance. So our next experiment was to come up with optimum parameters for spraying desert locusts using a drone. Again, at this stage, because we were dealing with the toxic pesticides, it was really important to come up with these parameters and establish them, and also to be sure that the drone will be able to release a good quantity of pesticides as recommended. So for us to meet this objective, we did an experiment with white papers, which we pinned on the ground. Then we used a black ink, which we loaded on the drone, then we sprayed at different heights. So the idea here was just to see how the black ink will deposit on the white papers, and this will tell us we'll be able to know the droplets density at different heights. Then we compared with the recommended volume application rate in 1 centimeter square. So after laying the papers on the ground, we sprayed with black ink. Then, of course, counting every droplet in each and every paper was hard. So we used a software known as Dropleaf, which was able to calculate all this for us. So we scanned all the papers that we sprayed. Then after scanning, they were imported to Dropleaf. Then Dropleaf was able to calculate the number of drops, the mean diameter of those drops, coverage areas of those drops, and also the density, the number of drops in 1 centimeter square. So with this information, we were able to analyze or even to come up with the droplets density at each and every height. And this helped us to know the optimum height based on the recommended volume application rate of metarhizium that should be applied on desert locust. Next slide, please. So this is just a summary of what we got. For example, the height that we tested were 5, 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10, and 12.5 meters above the ground. So you can see that at 2.5, for example, the droplet density was 152.5. And at 5 meters, it was 71, at 7.5, at 10, and at 12.5. The recommended volume application rate for metarhizium is 45 droplets per centimeter square. If you compare this recommended volume application rate against what we recorded, what we sprayed on the ground, you can see that at 2.5, the droplet density are so many, and at 12.5, the droplet density are less compared to the recommended value. So what does this mean? It means that when you're spraying at a very low height, that you will end up over depositing pesticide in those areas, and this can also lead to contamination, and you will also spend a lot on pesticides. So, but when you're spraying at 12.5 again, there is also a risk of under application of pesticide, and this is very, very wrong, because when you're applying pesticides that is not recommended, for example, when it's low, especially at 12.5, for example, the insects can develop resistance because they are not getting the exact dose that they're supposed to receive. So we realize that there is a problem when you're spraying at very low height, and there's a problem when you're spraying at very high height, which is coming with under application and over application of pesticides. So in our study, 10 meters presented 48.7 centimeters per droplets per centimeter square, sorry, which was closer to the recommended volume application rate, which was 45 droplets in 1 centimeter square. So with our study, we presented or recommended that the best height for spraying the desert locusts is 10 meters above the ground, based on the number of droplets that we compared, based on the number of droplets that we recorded at that height, and how we compared it with the recommended value of 45. Next slide, please. Yeah, so after doing all that, of course, we sprayed black ink on top of white papers because the idea was to come up with, idea was to know how droplets will be behaving at different heights. So after knowing all that, we went ahead and we now did another experiment with real locusts. And these locusts were arranged or even were put in a wire mesh cage. And these wire mesh cages, they had spaces that allowed penetration of pesticides when you're applying in the field. Then we use metarhizium. Metarhizium is a fungi and it's a biopesticide. It's a safe pesticide specific to locust only, so it doesn't have any negative impact on target, and that's why we used it for our experiment. So after arranging the locusts in the wire mesh cages, the metarhizium was formulated according to how it's recommended. Then after that, we sprayed locusts at different heights from 2.5 to 12.5 meters again. Then after spraying, because metarhizium, it doesn't act on the insect immediately. It doesn't have high knockdown effect as the other synthetic pesticides. It's a fungi that needs to get into the contact with the insect. It needs to germinate inside the insect. Then after some time, it will sporulate, and it is through that process that it causes mortality, or even it causes the insect to die. So after spraying, we took all these cages with the sprayed locusts or with the treated locusts to the laboratory. We monitored mortality rate for 21 days, which is the maximum number of days that metarhizium can act on an insect. So through that period, we collected also some data just to compare with the first experiment that we did. And we realized that at 2.5, locusts were dying very fast. By fourth stage, fifth stage, almost 50% of the locusts that were sprayed at 2.5 died. But you'll find that at 12.5, the locusts that we sprayed at 12.5 meters, even at 18th day, some of them were still alive, though they were weak. And this is because they received dose they received less dose, so which was causing mortality very slowly, and that's why they took time to die. But idea with metarhizium is that even if you spray even the smaller quantity, the insect will still die, but now the number of days that it will take will be different, because as long as it gets that infection, then of course the insect must die. But now the rate of how they will die will depend on the quantity of the fungi that will reach on the surface of the insect. But when you are spraying synthetic pesticides, then it becomes risky, because if you give an insect a quantity that is less than recommended, then they will develop resistance. So even in this second experiment, it showed that at lower height, insects or even whatever you are trying to spray, you'll be able to get high quantity, and at very high height, whatever you are spraying will get low quantity of pesticide, and this will have an impact, a direct impact on mortality. So even for us to confirm that mortality was as a result of what we sprayed and not other factors, we incubated the dead locust and we saw some spores growing on their surface. This was just to confirm that mortality was as a result of the metarhizium that we sprayed. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in this project, we achieved a lot of things. One, we came up with the standard operating procedures, how you can plan for your flight, what you should consider when you want to survey locust, what you should, at what height can you survey, can you do the assessment surveillance when you just want to know the likeliness of locust to occur, at what height can you maintain that drone when you want to get the detailed information of the locusts. Then we also came up, of course, with height, the best height for spraying, metarhizium, which was 10 meters above the ground. And we also we were also able to present how different parameters were changing at different heights, especially when one is doing surveillance. Then another achievement from this is we were able to even share with these results with some of the people who are also key in pest management, and especially for desert locust management, such as FAO, who are currently, FAO is currently using drones in recession areas, such as the Sahel regions, western part of Asia, and even the areas of Arabian Peninsula, just to use drone to survey locusts in those areas so that they can apply the control measures at an early stage before they reach to other areas where they're usually not present throughout the year. Then we were also able to share all this information even in workshops, conferences, and the Ministry of Agriculture, even the drone operators, we were able to share all this with them so that they can also improve on how they are using drones for surveillance of pests and also for application of pesticides. The good thing is the results that we got from this work is not just restricted to desert locust only, and it can also be used as a baseline, even to manage other pests that are priority in different countries. Next slide, please. So apart from the locust work that we have done, recently we started another drone project in Kenya, where we are using it to improve the management of a serious weed which is called opuntia. So this weed is a serious problem in a certain nature conservancy. It's called Naibunga Community Nature Conservancy. And people have come up with ways on how it can be managed. The opuntia can be managed through mechanical and chemical methods, but they have not been successful. This is because of some of the disadvantages that the existing methods are also presenting. So at CABI, we are testing the biocontrol of that opuntia, where we are rearing insects that we can release into the field to feed on that opuntia. So that has been found as a promising way of managing it safely. And also it has been working in other countries. So that's why we also decided to try it in Kenya on the management of opuntia. But even for us to assess the impact of this insect on the opuntia, we needed to try other technologies that can help us to do that in a good way, where we will not waste a lot of time walking through those areas, and also technology that is not expensive, that is also accurate and will not consume a lot of our time in the field. So what we did with this project is, because the main thing here is to release the insect to control that opuntia. But how do we know that that biocontrol is working or not? So we did mapping where we were collecting data. We launched the drones at different heights. And the idea here was to come up with the optimum height for mapping that opuntia using a drone. Because before the release of the insect, we wanted to have the baseline data. We wanted to know how is the situation on the ground. What is the extent of coverage of this opuntia? How is it spreading? So we wanted to get that information before releasing the insect. Then, of course, after release, we'll be going to the field to do mapping. Then we'll be comparing the maps and see whether there's a difference in those maps in time and space. So next slide, please. So what we did, the first activity that we did was to assess the effectiveness of drones to identify opuntia. We wanted to be sure that the drone can really identify this weed, and we also wanted to be sure that the drone can also differentiate it from other plants, because in those areas there are other different plant species, and we wanted to be sure that it can really differentiate the weed that we're interested with from other existing plants. So we selected an area that had dense opuntia, which is that weed we are interested in. Then after identifying those areas, we launched the drone to capture the images at in different places. Then these images, of course, they were analyzed. And after that, we trained the model to identify opuntia. So we had different groups. For example, opuntia, we had different types of plant species like acacia, euphorbia, or grasses. So with this, we were just trying to use to train the model to differentiate Opuntia from other groups, such as the plants that I've mentioned. And from the results that we got, it was we had error margin of around 37%. And we are planning to reduce that error by increasing more group that we are going to select even to train the model. So it is still ongoing, but at least the results that we have gotten so far is positive, and it's showing that the drone can really differentiate the Opuntia, which is the weed we are interested in, from other plants that are in those areas. Another way to assess the effectiveness of drones for identifying Opuntia was through counting the number. For example, we selected an area, which was 50 by 100 meters. Then within that area, we counted all the Opuntia that were present. Then after counting, we noted that down. Then we launched the drone to capture the images of that area. Within that area, we analyzed, then we came up with a map. So we also counted all the number of Opuntia from the images that we collected using a drone. Then we compared with the images that we counted on the ground. And there was a small error margin, which was just 1%. And this showed us that the drone can be able to give us the exact information when it comes to identification of Opuntia. So another activity that we did was to optimize the key parameters for mapping, because we wanted to know at what height can you see the Opuntia? At what height are you able to launch your drone to do the mapping of this weed? So we selected an area, the same area. Then we launched the drone to capture the images at different heights, 12 meters, 17 meters, 22 meters, 27 meters, and 32 meters above the ground. Then we analyzed the images at those different heights, then we compared. And of course, we also collected some of the parameters like the time that we will take to capture those images at different heights, the time that we will take to analyze even those images, and also the resolution. So with this, we also tested and compared all those just to come up with the optimum height. The third activity that we did was to establish the baseline data for monitoring of Opuntia. So the idea here is we wanted to, before we release the insects in the field, we wanted to have a baseline data or the monitoring plots. So we selected other areas with Opuntia, we did mapping, we analyzed, and we stored those maps just for future comparison, because we want that after releasing the insect, which we are planning to do in the next 1 month, after that, we'll be going to the field after every 3 months. We do mapping in those specific areas. So we'll do 3 months, then maybe 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. So we'll be doing that until the end of the second year from now. Then after that, we'll be able to present different maps at different times. And this will help us to know whether the insect we released is working or not, and whether the health of Opuntia is reducing or not, and whether even the insect is spreading to control Opuntia in other areas where the release was not done. So we have managed to come up with those monitoring plots that we'll be using to monitor the impact of the control measures. And of course, the fourth activity, you cannot go with the technology to a certain area without involving the community. So we also conducted some of the demonstration just to showcase the project. We educated the community on how our technology is working and what we are planning, our objectives, and what we will be doing with it. We showed them how the drone is operating, from capturing the images to analysis to presentation. And they received it positively, and they are willing to adopt the drone technology just to ensure that we used it to help them manage this Opuntia, which is really a big problem in their community. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these are some of the outputs that we got from that mapping project. So you can see maybe some of the maps. I don't know if they're clear from your end, some of the maps. The first one is just showing the Opuntia together with other vegetation spread in the field where we did mapping. Then the second one is where we used GNDVIs and other vegetation indices just to come up with a map of, or even a presentation of the puntia, trying to assess their health status, water content, chlorophyll content, and these are the same thing that we will be comparing with time after we've released our insect in the field, because we are assuming that after releasing the insect in the field, of course, they will be feeding on the opuntia. So that means water content, chlorophyll content, or even the general health of opuntia will be reducing. Now, this change is what we'll be capturing with the images, and this change is what we'll be getting from the images that we'll get from our drones. And we'll be comparing how was it before release and how is it after release. Then, is it working or not? Then in the same slide is also showing how we were presenting some of this drone work even to the community. They were participating, they were asking questions, and they were able to get all the detailed information on how drones can be used to help in the management of invasive weeds in their community. Next slide, please. So this is also just a continuation on community engagement, how we engage the community. We took them through our projects, and they were happy also to see the drone. They were happy to ask some of the questions of the drones, and we are also happy to interact and even share the messages or even the information on the drone technology in the management of weed, puntia weed. Next slide, please. So this is just a photo that we took last year in a scientific conference that we attended as CABI, and the former president of Nigeria attended, and he asked us a good question. Why are many companies in Africa hesitant to go in drone-related technology in agriculture? Next slide, please. So our answer is on the next slide. So many people or many drone operators, they are still not, many people are still not in drone technology. Of course, many people know that it's presenting many advantages, potential, but most of the people are still not in the sector. So that was the question of the question of the former president. And my answer, the answer that I gave him was that one is cost. Of course, to start the drone as a company is not cheap because you will require to buy a drone, you require to buy some of the softwares, there are some of the trainings, and also for one to train and become a drone pilot, it's also not cheap because you need to pay some money for that. Then, of course, there are regulations. So there are a lot of regulation on drones, and these regulations are also different in different countries. Then there is also another problem of processing all this data. But in CABI, our aim is not even to advise all the farmers to have their drones, but our aim is to make it more sustainable. So, for example, how different counties they have tractors where farmers can hire and at a cheaper price to do farming is the same way we are dreaming that in future these county governments will be having drones and they will be employing maybe young youths who can have these skills to do mapping, to do processing of data, to do spraying. So through this, at least we'll be involving youths, and through this we'll be improving agriculture in those counties, and we'll be ensuring that those farmers are getting information or even the knowledge that they require as far as their pests and diseases and even the nutrients in their soil is concerned. So drones has a lot of opportunities, and they can collect this data. You can know the problem at an early stage. You can apply pesticides also at an early stage, and through this, crops are prevented or even are managed from crop loss. And this is all this is advantageous to the farmers. So my takeaway message is just be wise, be drone wise. Thank you. Thank you. I now welcome questions or any comments.
Wow. Thank you so much for this profound and expository section. This is really, really mind blowing. Please giving us exposition into the landscape of Kenya. What your organization is using drones to do. I can tell you this is really transformational in like curbing the infestation of locust and also this opuntia plant. I think it's really crazy having that kind of thing, just growing anywhere on the flood, invading the whole places. That's really going to affect a lot of things and actually made like an explanation more on the flight time because it's more of a field research work to what I am seeing. You guys are actually using different models to actually see to measure efficiency and the productivity of using these drones in different scales. And I want to really commend that. That's very, very great. Well done to yourself and your team. So, hello, our participants. We want to entertain questions now. So, in case you have your question, you can still drop them. So, let me quickly check if we have any question or comments. So, okay, I think we have a compliment for you here. Mr. Fladikodi said, "Wow, this is great. Well done, huh?" So he's just giving a commendation. Okay, so there is one question here. So he said, recommended flight height for effective droplets deposited for locust management, can it be applied to other insects, especially the exoskeleton? Uh, I don't know, do you get that part? This is his question. You can also read through. Recommended flight height for effective droplet deposited for locust management, can it be applied for other insects, especially the skeleton? Okay, what he's saying here is that the template or the model you used for the locust treatment, so can it also be used or applied to other categories of insect pests? Maybe he was talking about the exoskeleton or something. So that's what he's asking about.
Yeah, it's possible. The experiment that we did on desert locust, all those things that we found out, our results can be applied to manage other insects. So, for example, when you look at fall armyworm, for example, and we have tried also to replicate or even to test what we did with locust on other insects, and the result was positive. The difference is that we did our experiment with metarhizium, which is specific to locust only. Metarhizium is just specific for desert locust control, but if you can't use metarhizium to control other pests. So now the optimum parameters that we presented, or even the optimum height that we presented, was for desert locust. But now that idea you can replicate it to manage other pests. But now the optimum height for maybe managing another pest may be different from this one. But the idea is just the same. The optimum parameters are still, the other parameters that you need to consider will still remain the same. What will maybe be different is just height, depending on the pesticide that you're using. So we are even hoping to do other experiment on the synthetic pesticides, because most of the fall armyworm or even other priority pests, people are using synthetic pesticides. But our project or even our experiment was not based on the synthetic pesticides. So that is the place where maybe the difference can come in. But when you look at the concept, other key parameters, and even the standard operating procedures, that's something that you can replicate to the management of other insects.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for giving that insight. I think he also has one question here. So he's asking about what are the factors to be considered during choice of nozzle types for drone spraying for effective pest control?
So, for example, you need to know the pesticide you are spraying. What type is it? Because we have different types of pesticides formulation. We have we have emulsifiable concentrate, which you just mix with water and you spray. And we also have some of the pesticides that are ULV, ultra low volume, where you just spray the way you get them from the manufacturer, you know. Then there are some of the pesticides that you mix with oil, for example, diesel. So all the pesticide that you're using will inform the nozzle type that you want to use, because remember, formulation type will inform whether the pesticide you are spraying will get into the contact with the insect or not. So I can say that how you formulate your pesticide will inform the nozzle type that you are using.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Let me quickly check if we have other questions. Okay. We have this from Mr. Stanley Same. Okay. I think he's based in Dubai. That's UAE. So he's asking about what kind of drones are you currently using for the mapping? Okay.
Wow. So in the previous experiments, we used Mavic 2 Pro, but currently we are using Mavic 3 multispectral RTK. So the most recent one, Mavic 3 multispectral RTK. That's the model we are using now. But this experiment, we did it with the Mavic 2 Pro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's very great. That's very great. So you just want to have an insight on the type of drone you are using, and you've already answered that. Okay. So from Ade, okay, someone is asking here, Mr. Ade Kojotosi. So how is drone used in livestock production to detect and control pests and diseases? Okay.
Wow, that's a good question. We have not done any work on livestock management using a drone, but from my experiences, I can say that first you can use drones to maybe survey the pasture. You can be monitoring the pasture level in your farm, and another way is even to spray to spray. For example, you want to control maybe a certain disease, maybe sese fly, you know, you want to control sese in a certain setting. So you can use drone to apply the those pesticide target, to do the targeted application of pesticide to your livestock. So instead of using the maybe handheld sprayers where chemical may fail to reach to the specific part of the cow or even the livestock you are trying to control. So with the drone, when you launch it at a certain height above the livestock you are controlling, then I believe that it will be able to dispense good quantity of pesticide that you're supposed to spray compared to existing methods. So we have not done this, but I believe it's doable through pasture management, to controlling the pests themselves from the livestock, and even just doing surveillance generally on any other thing that may impact your livestock negatively.
Okay. Thank you very much. So let me see. Okay, Mr. Stanley just responded. That's perfect. I think he comments your answer to his question. Okay. What quality? So this from Mr. Adekoju is asking, what is the quality? What is the water quality effect for the rain and its effect? Okay.
Water quality? I don't understand the question.
Okay, I think what it's saying is the water quality effect, probably your uh, concentration or like the mixture of your solution
Yeah,
for the drone
yeah.
spraying and its effect. So he's talking about like, I mean, your degree of mixing, I can put it. the
Okay.
concentration.
So with this, it's recommended that you just have to look at the label of the pesticide you are spraying because all the information is written there on how you are supposed to mix your pesticides. So, for example, if it's 10 ml in 20 liters, then it should remain like that. Whether you are using a drone, whether you are using aircraft, whether you are using handheld sprayers or even the vehicle mounted sprayers, then you have to be careful. You have to look at the label and you have to formulate according to the manufacturer's recommendation. So I can say that it will not depend on the drone or the type of the method that you are using to apply that pesticide, but it will depend on how you are formulating. So yeah, water quality and how you formulate your product or your chemical will affect on whether it will work or not. Because if you use more water than recommended, then it means that only a small quantity of that of that pesticide will get into the contact with the insect, and that means that you will not be able to get the mortality that you expect. So yeah, formulation is important, and just read the label of the pesticide you are spraying.
Okay. Thank you very much for answering that question. Okay, so Mr. Sam, does your drone application works as well for the livestock? Okay, does your drone application works as well for the livestock slash poultry and fishery production line? Okay.
So far, the work that we have done with drones is in line with crop health management. So we've been focusing on mapping crop health problems and just application of pesticide on the crops. This is another line that we have not tried yet, but it's something that we can try to do and maybe present in the next presentation. But at the moment, we are not so much into livestock, even poultry management. So we have not yet tried that.
Okay.
But it has a potential.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so thanks so much for answering that question. I think we don't have other questions here for now. Okay, I think we are gradually coming to the end of this webinar. So before you go, as a professional and a facilitator in this program, I will want you to probably give your parting word or advice to this participants. Some are actually new to the world of precision agriculture. So, what advice do you want to give them, or like the parting words to actually them before you?
Thank you so much. So what I can say is let's embrace drone technology in agriculture. It has a lot of potential. And with this technology, we are able to safeguard food security. We are able to improve agriculture. And I'm also urging youths, especially youths, we are so energetic, we have energy. And I'm calling upon each and every youth to come and lead, especially in the field of agriculture. So let's not say that it's a dirty field the way we've been saying before. And I'm also calling upon ladies, let's come into agriculture, let's use the drone technology, let's change the world. And even to other plant health practitioners, let's embrace and let's be able to support even the drone operators and each and every person who is in this sector, because at the end of the day, it's not easy. There are some of the challenges that we experience, but of course, with support, even with the policies or other plant health practitioners, it becomes a bit easy. So my advice is let's improve agriculture through technologies, not drone only. We have several other technologies that when we adopt and embrace, we can really reach to another level and make a change in Africa and even in the whole world.
Wow. Yeah, thank you so much for that parting word. It's very, very profound and it's also ethical for me that we all need to have our engagement be included and have the sense of belonging in transforming Africa with technological initiatives. And this will really change the game of Africa. Yeah, it's really been a long time here. It's over 1 hour that we've been here, and you actually took us through, uh, like giving us exposition and insight around precision crop protection with drone technology. It's really a mind-blowing time with you here. So thank you. Let me just see if we have other questions, and if we don't have, then we can put the stream to an end. All right. Okay. Uh, I think you've answered all the questions we have here from our participants. Uh, yes, so done that. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you too, and thanks for the invitation. I appreciate, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you more and even to giving more presentations in future. Thank you.
All right, definitely. It's a pleasure to have you here. We are glad to really have you on board, and we hope that going forward too, uh, we can always call you or invite you for subsequent webinars to actually share your insight around. So
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Really nice time. Thank you very much. So, everyone, we've finally come to the end of the webinar, so we'll be ending the stream soon. So it's really a mind-blowing time with our facilitator, Miss Violet Ochieng. So I will just enjoin you that you can always have a rewatch because the video is actually available on the YouTube link. You can have a replay of that to actually state yourself more on that to understand it better. All right, thank you everyone. We've actually come to the end of this webinar. So thank you, or you can take your leave. We're ending the stream now.